Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are having a good time enjoying the session for the Automation Days Asia 2022. We have here our next speaker, Eric. Eric is actually one of our experts that we have actually been privileged to have. He started his RPA journey back in 2017. He has actually done a lot of work regarding to business operation itself to try and automate certain things with key customers in Australia as well. So we're happy to have him here today to actually do it the session from Australia. So we are very, very fortunate indeed. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm really privileged to have you here with us. I'm going to hand over the stage to you. Take us through the topic of business operations efficiency with intelligent automation itself. All right, Eric, over to you now.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your kind word. Good afternoon, everybody from Australia. My name is Eric. It is my privilege to be able to share with you a thing or two about automation, my passion, and hope that you can take away a couple of things out of this conversation. So the topic today, I would say when I compare it with the other topic from the other speaker, I was a little bit surprised because in a way, my conversation, the topic I decided to go ahead, it blend in the space of technology, business, and operations, whereas the others, they will cover other part of automation more in depth around the technology or around certain use case or even the training aspect of it. So I hope I'll give you something different today. And once again, thank you for your time. At any time, if you have any question, please feel free to put it out there, and then we will address those questions timely. Okay. First thing first, let's just start the conversation with this is like my personal reflection about automation. For me, automation, it is all about business operations. Why did I come to this conclusion? It was due to my over 16 years serving Telstra in Australia in the space of global customer service. And automation, I bring in all the skill set I've learned along the way, working with people, working with system, working with data, solving problem that almost like impossible to solve. But then you have to find out a way to respond to the person on the other end almost immediately. So that's why I see that a lot of the time, if we now look back, when we talk about automation, whether it is hyper automation, intelligent automation, or any kind of automation like workflow, low code, no code, or even macro, we tend to focus on the part around the speed, around the scale, or about the latest feature from the vendors. However, I think the other part of automation, which is the reason why we have automation, not many people mention. So for me, it is the starting point, and also it is the end point of every single work I work on with client on their automation journey. So now around our agenda, I will give you my my learning along the way in the space of intelligent automation, as well as how I actually work with clients to solve real problem and help them to drive their automation journey to the next stage. So it will be around three questions: why, what, and who, in the context of operational efficiency. And why I picked up operational efficiency to couple with process automation. Let's see why. First thing first, as you are aware, we are heading to the end of the year 2020. It is the year that we hope that the COVID pandemic is over, behind us, and we will be back on track to get back to our life. However, if you look at in the news, this is just a snapshot I put together. And I can share with you that over the past 12 months, almost 12 months, it was so eventful. And we, at some point, we think that things getting better. But then all of a sudden, as you can see, in March, we had a war in Ukraine. And then right after that, we have the inflation's rate start rising everywhere and come with the energy crisis in Europe. And it affects every single household, every single business around the world, not just in Europe. For example, in Australia, our gas bill, like over the winter back in July, the bill, like on average, the increase was about 50% to 80%. And the prediction is going to be another 50% jump by the same time next year. So it is a huge pressure on every single individual, families, and business. And on top of that, now we have China. Economic growth now slowed down the first time after decades comparing to other countries, especially in the Southeast Asian countries. And now we are approaching to end of the year. We know that the US, UK, or Japan, they're now heading to recession period. So with that context, as you can see, the question for every one of us here is not just about the amazing things we can do with automation, with the technology, but also it is about what it's going to be like in the next year or so. How can we adapt? And if we can change and pivot early, can we have a better chance to thrive? So that is the context of today's conversation. Now I will share with you a couple of things just to refresh everyone in the room, a thing or two about automation. So in the on the screen, I list out a couple of key change and trend in the market, as well as in the community of practice. In the space of technology, we have heard about intelligent document processing, or make use of AI model with natural language processing algorithm to work on, like say, contract management, on fraud detection. It is growing, and I think it is gonna be exponentially growth in the space of intelligent automation. Conversational AI, it is something, if you're interested in tech, have a look at it, because it is now the reality. For example, if you're in Singapore, a company called With AI, they have been the key roles during the COVID response with the government there, in regarding to make use of their conversational AI to help resident in terms of health check or report their status during the lockdown or circuit breaker. In terms of operation space, I would say the interesting thing I want to highlight, it's going to be around the two things. One, the insourcing capacity approach. In another word, business now willing to spend significant investment and time and patience to upskilling their team members, their staff, to make use of technology in automation, in AI. I think it was a significant shift. And secondly, it is around the operation model. With a federated and self-sustainable operation model, it means we no longer have just IT own everything of automation and run with their own cadence and their priorities queue. It's going to be business. Business can leverage the platform that ICT support, manage, maintain, and make use of the technology as fit. Moving on to the right-hand side, in terms of trend, process mining is definitely on the rise. But still, I would say only if you have well defined data, then process mining will help you out. Otherwise, it would take a lot of investment to overcome the challenge with data, with legacy and dependency. The other on the horizon, on the right hand side, I would say the most important part of the change is going to be around cross-platform automation integration. In particular, it would be Microsoft and UiPath. They have just announced their partnership in about a month ago between their Power platform, in particular Power Automate, and the UiPath platform. So I would say very soon we will see that collaboration, and it can be a big push to the adoption of automation across the business landscape. On this slide, this is just another very interesting survey that I came across, and I want to share with everyone. Basically, this is a survey across 5 countries in APAC. You can see Australia, Hong Kong, India, Malaysia, and Singapore there. The survey was around the feedback from executive after their RPA adoption happens after 12 months. You can see, I will not go into details too much, but what really interesting was around priorities of RPA. So across those area of focus, it turned out that finance and IT is they are the 2 kind of like major adopter within organization. Whereas for sales, marketing, and customer service space, the adoption or maybe the use case was less than the envision. Moving to the right hand side on the table, I just want to call out a couple of interesting observation I can see here. First thing first, as you see on the right hand side, Singapore, it turned out that the response from Singaporean business was in some ways it was quite less overwhelmed with the technology. They look like they see the pro and cons of the adoption. Whereas on the right hand side, Australia, where I am, we tend to be overexcited with the change, with the potential, and also with the and it comes with the cost as well. For Australia, the cost of implementation was quite high. However, it looks like for Singaporean business, the perception of maintenance cost was quite significant, almost like 90%. Think that the maintenance cost is expensive. I think that is something to do for the audience in the room to think about, because it definitely, if you are working for a client or you work for from within the organization, you build, but then the maintenance is the make or break element to build a sustainable automation program. Now, let me, so that's the context and a little bit a snapshot of the automation industry, process automation landscape. Now I'll move on to the theme of today. It is about operational efficiency. The why. Why did I pick it up? First thing first, if you scan through the headline across the world, you will see that cost cutting is the thing now, literally everywhere. And the cost of living is, as I mentioned earlier, is a big issue. So that is why business top priority now is all about controlling operating costs. And over here, I put together a simple kind of like chart to just, from my understanding, I map out where are we all across those kind of like phase. And as you see, the operating costs during the COVID time, in particular 2021, thanks to the low interest rate and non-stop stimulus package from government, make it so easy for company and business to expand and go for big kind of like ambitious project. But then all of a sudden, as I mentioned earlier, with the year 2022, so 2022, things change dramatically, and all of a sudden the conversation around cost cutting drive us to the point where we have two options. Either in 2022 we're still under the same zone of inflation, high interest rate, but we still can optimize the cost and still can keep certain program and capabilities going. On the other hand, the other scenario means business will make the difficult decision, and it means keep the light on kind of like mode for a lot of non-core operation. So in terms of automation, it is a big questions around how do we relate to how do we adapt and relate to the new business need from organization. And that's why I think, to fill in the blank, definitely it is all about business operational efficiency, because that is the way to make sure that any business can make use of time, money, and people at the with the constraint under the constraint of budget and time. So that was the why. Now I will move on to the what and the who of around operational efficiency. It is inspiring to say, okay, we're gonna adapt to the new situation. We're gonna save money, cut the budget, cut the cost. But what exactly we are talking about? So I put together this slide just to give you some sort of like indication to find how it fit to your own situation, your own organization. Most of the time when we talk about the conversation about operational change or restructure, we always just think about business driver, and then from business driver push it down to those change to those new KPI. However, a lot of the time we forget about corporate or business organization. They are people, a lot of people, and that's why I bring in the Maslow hierarchy of need, but with a twist around organizational hierarchy of need. As you can see here, we move from the base level all the way up to the top, and it linked to the business driver. In another word, business strategy or priority, top priority of the moment, and then the KPI. So I can see that this is like a triangle that influence each other. So the what and who question, it is about for intelligent automation team to talk to the right people, about the right area of interest, so that we can start with the common interest and get it go along the way. Then I will move on to the next conversation. It is about the how. So we know about the what of like who do we talk to and what we can look into to have a meaningful conversation with stakeholders within business. However, the how to, it is the important part. And I think a lot about this topic. And then I decided to call it get the basics right, because it's not like a magic bullet to solve every single problem. It starts from something very basic. And here you are. This is the 5 questions. I call it do the 5 to get a buy-in, build trust, and deliver impactful outcome with intelligent automation. So to be clear, normally it is so easy for us to start with number 4 here. Is it an instant impact? It translates to the vendor's conversation. It's all about the ROI, 10x, 5x, save costs instantly, payback 6 months, 12 months, or 3 months. It is always start from here, just like a headline, attention grabber. However, with the do the 5 framework here, we start with something more fundamental. Is it a business pain point? And then we move on to the second question. So this is like a series of questions that when we have the conversation with other stakeholders, we will then unfold certain certain aspect of the problem that we try to solve with intelligent automation. Intelligent automation, at the end of the day, it is a technology, a tool. So we need to find the right context, the right angle to apply the tools. Otherwise, we will forever be locked in with low-hanging fruit and promise that never fulfill. So back to the framework here. So we start with the business problem, then we go to technical feasibility, and we go for financially viable, instant impact, and then last but not least, would the benefit growing over the time. The reason why we have this order is first, if it is a pain point, but the technology is not there yet, then we should not bother to push it further. Why? Because now, in the context of tight budget, it is important to think through and prepare as much as we can, rather than give it a shot and we end up with nothing. Down here, you see, I put down the supporting information. It is basically to facilitate the 5 questions we put up here for getting the basic right for intelligent automation. Now let's go to the details of those supporting documents. So you see tangible outcome, we start with the structure. We talk about tangible outcome. We think about reward to the decision maker, to the organization, not just the saving hours, simple saving hours, and the promise that people will do something more valuable. It has to be, in a way, visible and impactful. Then we go through intelligent automation lens, where we put down here the specific information or piece of work that we will then can find information to provide back to the question that we pose here. Last but not least, it is all about evidence-based assessment with a number of popular techniques like value stream mapping, process mapping, dependency assessment, risk assessment. And as you can see, at the end of the day, what I put down here to share with you, it is not really about this is the formula, this is the suggestion, and depending on the industry or the organization's size, you then will pick and choose certain part. For example, with my background in telecommunication, the question around number 3, is it financially viable? It is super critical, because in the space of customer service, we can have, like, say, backlog of 100 requests or even 1,000 requests at a time. So is it the right? Is it the size of the problem versus the cost of implementation? Does it make sense? I remember a few years ago when I talked to my former boss. She told me that at that time, her team put forward to 2 teams within the organization. One team was in the AI R&D, the other team was in automation. They said that, okay, we have a mailbox where clients send email to report their incident. Can you 2 work together and come up with a solution that will basically offload about 80% of our work, so that we can focus on other kind of like escalation or priorities, incidents management? The answer from the 2 teams were very different, I must say. For automation team, they say yes for every single requirement, but the assumption was the AI team will provide a solution in the form of natural language processing and risk management to be able to detect the language and file and give the automation the right input to file into the system and create ticket assigned to the right team. However, for the AI team, they said that we will do it, but it's gonna be at least 2 years journey. So it is not financially viable at all in that context. So I want to just go to some key takeaway that I have here today. So first, it is about the pain point. Focus on the pain point to know the direction. So easy for us to say, okay, if we want to make use of automation, give me the process. I've been through situation where actually we have no process. That's number one, but we still commit to build an automation. On the other hand, we do have process and we do have that's made of those process. However, the direction was no, we won't repeat what people have done inefficiently for 10 years, 15 years. We're going to reimagine the process from today's need and futures kind of like need as well. So I was through those situations where the conventional approach of give me a process, I will do the magic, give you some assessment. It simply doesn't work. And I've learned that focus on the pain point was actually the right beginning for any conversation around automation. It is not about replication of what humans do, but about deliver the outcome that business need and the end user want. The second takeaway is about corporate collaboration and innovation. It is actually embedded in these 5 questions in this kind of like framework, because in order for you to identify the information, get the direction out of it in a meaningful way and practical way, it has to be collaboration cross team. It has to be in the form of innovation, and also it has to be in the form of risk taking. So without working closely with people, we won't be able to deliver this outcome. And the last takeaway, it is about measure what matters, for whom, until when. I think this is one of the biggest challenge for any automation teams, because most of the time we were in the mindset of in and out. You come in, you build it, it worked, so you build for a sign off, but you will not think beyond that. So your thinking was in a way encapsulated within what we call scope. Scope, endorse, lockdown, done. It is not. It is nothing else. We just focus on that scope on paper. However, it is just what I've learned along the way. When you actually start to care about what matters to whom, until when, you will realize that you have more influence to the client, to the decision maker, because at the end of the day, you show that they've got you, and you have their best interest in mind. And in terms of change, operation, this is all about change. I have never seen any organization that can stay doing the same things day in, day out over the time, be it, like say, 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months, or 10 years. Things change, it is life. But in the space of automation, whether it is intelligent automation or robotic automation, we come with the assumption that as soon as we sign off the scope, things stay. And it backfires, like say at the end, like so many times that I've seen that we are at the end of the delivery cycle, then the client come back with just a simple message: things change, we need you to fix it, otherwise we won't sign off. So if we do not prepare for that moment in advance, it's going to be very painful. It is extremely uncomfortable situation. So they did just for me. I've learned along the way that I always questions the context of certain requirement or assumption, so that we know exactly who will have will get the impact if things change, as well as the time frame. On that topic, it is also maybe it's also something I can share with you. It just happened in Australia not long ago. Apparently, a utility companies, they were fined with a record kind of like a fine in the industry of about up to $20 million because of their RPA program. In particular, one single bot that happened to run for over 4 years, and the court found out that it impacted over 100,000 customer of that company, and the fine, the price tag was about 20 millions. If you ask me why did one bot cause so much reputational damage as well as financial loss for the company, it was simply because of the when and the whom. Part of the business rules was around certain criteria for the bot to close off account of a certain client who late for payment. However, as things change over the years, there is certain kind of like changed in the regulation in Australia, where we have something we call a client with financial hardship. So the thing was, the company supposed to be comply with the new regulation, but the bot that built years ago wasn't changed accordingly. So the business rule was signed off 4 years ago, now caused them trouble. So that's why I decided to put it as a key takeaway for today. And so that is my conversation, my sharing around operational efficiency improvement with intelligent automation. You can find me, and we can keep in touch with my LinkedIn profile. You can search for Eric Nguyen RPA. This is a bonus for you since you stay in the room. I'd like to share a number of case studies that I think is quite interesting, that align quite well with the framework I shared earlier around the how-to. You can see here business pain point, technically possible, financially viable, instant impact, and growing value and benefit. On the left-hand side, I want to call out Singaporean public sector in Singapore. I was amazed how the government there, they adapt to change and they embrace the journey with automation very early on with very good case study. And also other case study that I find very interesting around, let's say for the NHS, the case study, if you look through it, it is not much about, let's say the saving, even though the higher tagline is about like 2.1 millions. But part of the case study, they call out that they put it in context, put it out that thanks to the one bot, they can now have they can serve more about 20,000 patients. So normally with the booking in system in the UK with the NHS, it is a free for all health services. So if you booked and then you decide you could not show up, then it was like a very laborious work for those clinic to rebook for new patient. So they rephrase the pain point and rephrase it in a way that we all can relate it. So they say, okay, with this automation one bot, now they can open the door for another 10 or 20,000 patients to come and see doctor timely. I think it is very impactful. With AT&T, they are giant. So if you look into their case study, it is also very interesting. Very interesting perspective around how they make use of their technology stack and then put RPA in place so that they can serve customer in a better and timely manners. So I think this case study, along with the PowerPoint, will be available for download. So stay tuned. And that's all for me. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Really grateful for that.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry. I hope everybody has find that interesting. I see that there is a couple of questions in the so-called poster here. Let me just project it up. There's one interesting one. Let me just read that up for everybody. It says here, how do you ensure governance and compliance with the changing regulatory requirements? So I think this is related to the example they mentioned, the case in Australia, right? Whereby there was a classification of what we call customer experiencing hardship kind of a criteria. There was a regulatory from, I believe, from the central bank of sort to ensure that the customer are taken care of in a special category, right? So how do we actually do that, or what's your advice on this one, Eric? Would like to just get your thoughts on this.
Absolutely. I like the question. First thing first, thank you for raising the question. Because just a matter of fact, I'm working with a client right now, and I do it. I do it in that. Yeah. So, but not. It is not like say something in a template that you just bring in and you tick a box. It is actually a mindset. So when you say how do you ensure governance and compliance, it is pretty much about the mindset. The mindset that you remind yourself that, hey, what we do here actually has an impact along the way. And this governance and compliance, it has to be visible. It has to be accessible. So for me, in particular, I started as a very, let's say, for automation delivery, we do documentation, right? So for documentation, I deliberately create a brand new section where I say this is compliance check, and I make sure it reference to the current version of compliance that we have to follow. In particular, for this client, it is about financial compliance question. So you talk about data, talk about certain segregation of duty, and all sort of requirement we need to be to incorporate. So the way I make it work, I put it at the front and center of the documentation, and also I refer it to what I call change a matrix. So it's just like, you can call it old school, but I make it in Excel. Very simple. You basically, yes, well, why not? we can with all technology, but at the end of the day, it is about the timely outcome. So, for example, in this particular case, in terms of compliance, I list out in the document 3 compliance. It will relate to about 5 or 6 business rules, and then I couple it with the change, kind of like a centralized change matrix. So anytime that we go through and there's a change in certain compliance set, just a simple formula in Excel can show us the red flag, and then we can go back and say, okay, we'll go back to business, and rather than they come to us, we will work with them. So that is how I actually ensure governance and compliance with some very basic, simple step like that.
So I presume that's being done on a regular basis, right? Just to make sure that, let's say we do it, say a monthly review or whatever that is appropriate for the organization, right? Because I mean, we still need to keep up with some of these changes from the central bank or whoever the
information security that may have actually published certain policies for us to comply, I presume, in that sense.
That's correct. And I think in as we move into the digitization and digital transformation journey across the world, we will see that things change in a much rapid speed. So it is almost like impossible if you wait for someone to come and give you the warning. It simply too late.
Right. So I think to stay vigilant, to make sure we have that tool like you mentioned, and do it more on a regular basis, and not just yourself, I presume with the business will be also key to keep that constant engagement and communication channel open. Right. Yeah. I think we've answered that question already. Thank you for the question.
And one more tip. Yep, around that, when we use big word like say governance and compliance, people will not pay attention. But if you use the word, it's my experience. But if you start using the word risk, and you say, okay, this you talk about risk, people pay attention. If you talk about governance compliance, it is like too much bureaucratic word, red tape. Talk about risk, we will pay attention. Just
okay. So that's the key word that we've learned today, right? So replace with what we call risk instead of governance and compliance. I think people will start to say, "Hang on, what are you talking about, Eric? You know, where is the risk? How can we mitigate this a little bit better, right?"
Absolutely.
Got you. Right. Thanks for that, Eric. We do have another question that I think that's quite key. Let me just project that question out, and I'll read that out for everybody as well. Right. It says here, automation has always seemed to be a threat to jobs, right? I think this is an interesting question. What's your view on this one? And what would be your advice to overcome the fear of automation? Because I think for those who are new to this arena, or should I say this space of automation, right? People may have a misconception that it's really going to take away my job kind of thing. So how would you address that, Eric? Perhaps you can share your view.
Absolutely. I would say two questions here, but let me address the second question first. The fear of automation, the fear of the technology. I think it is the right response. However, from my experience along the way with customer service base, and then moving along to IT managed services, and then to automation, I would say the advice will be three things. Number one, it is about exposure. If you're about to bring in automation, don't sugarcoat it. Rather share the real story, because it's now so much information, so much real story, real people in your city, in the community, or even online. You can talk to real people, real story. You will say, okay, it is exactly what you should not be aware of, be afraid of. That's the first advice around exposure. The second advice it would be around the actual improvement, because most of the time we think automation will cut off the work, but the reality is for business, the number one fear, it is about the business. So if we don't reinvent ourselves through improving our operation in this particular instant, then it is a missed opportunity. And then when we bring in automation, people will just associate it with bad news. So I think automation only the follow on activity. And actually, for me, I keep saying that for automation, there's a split of value. 80% of the value actually happened before someone like me to come to your organization and do the decoding or touch the keyboard. 80% of the work actually was around that improvement, around that acknowledge the pain point, figuring out, okay, say it out loud, where is the dependency? What is the assumption? What is the legacy debt that we inherit? So so I would say if you start see from those angles, the fear of automation will on its own will disappear gradually. Now back to the first question about my opinion about threat to a job. When I looked back to history, automation partly would start from Henry Ford with his assembly line. It is a form of automation. And then fast forward to the 70s with the uprising of Japanese car maker industry, and we've learned a lot of robot was in place. So you see, this is like say it happens over the time. However, as you see the evidence, everyone now can afford to buy a car, and the car now is much better than the car we could buy 10 years ago, and in a way it's more affordable. So in terms of job, definitely it is not the same, but in terms of we as human, I think the greatest gift that we have compared to machine, it is the self-learning and the desire to grow. So I would say that hopefully will give you something to get over the fear as well as the self-doubt to move, move forward.
Yeah, so stay positive. This is always a good thing. Wherever there's a threat, there is always an opportunity for us to, leap forward into the future itself. Thank you so much, Eric. We're running out of time already. I hope the participants have find the so-called session insightful, especially for me. I've learned quite a lot of stuff from you, Eric, especially from those statistical stuff that you've shared. Really insightful. Again, thank you, Eric, for being our guest speaker today. You have been wonderful. I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody here. Thanks, Eric. We'll hope to see you again soon. Bye.